Good evening, good
Good evening,
evening.
everyone.
It has been a minute. It has been a minute.
That means he missed y'all. That's all that's saying. He misses you all.
How is everybody doing today? And welcome to Marital
Marital
Motivation
motivation
with
with
the
the Mackies.
Mackies.
Yes. So here
Woo!
we are now getting ready to go into, I was going to say September. I'm pushing it into our
Yes.
August podcast. We have a guest that we're going to bring on the stage in just a few minutes. But meanwhile, we're going to ask you all, please take time to share, 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 share. If you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, please take time, share it, send it out. We have a good conversation for you tonight. It's not often you would hear me say, like, ooh, this is going to be good. You don't want to miss this. But that's my story for tonight. You do not want to miss this conversation on tonight. So I'm going to open up first by just talking about how a few podcasts ago that we did, David and I were having a conversation, and I was saying how one of the things that I asked David was, if I was to die before you, how would you handle that? Like, what would that look like for you? And what was your response?
First of all, I was messing with her on purpose, and my response was, "Oh, I'll be good. I'll be all right. I'll even do the eulogy."
And I told him, bruh, that needs to not be your story. You need to be so broke down that the guys got to come over here and be like, oh man, we need you to get up and take a shower. Like you can't just be like, oh, I'm straight, I'm good. You can't just put me in one of your boxes and keep moving. I need to know that you're going to grieve.
Yeah.
So even though we've had that conversation jokingly, the truth of the matter is
It's a reality for a lot of people.
it's reality. One of us is going to die before the other, unless the Lord takes us at the same time.
Right.
Might get caught up at the same time.
It's possible.
That's
Yeah.
possible.
But in the actuality of it's a really serious subject. And yes, we're joking about it now. But we've also had a gentleman on the podcast before, Trey, who lost his wife to suicide. She took her own life. She had battled with depression, and he was on here and he was just talking about, life after and how he dealt with that. And, we have met a few people who's, have lost their loved ones, their spouse, and it's a heart wrenching moment. And I can't even imagine that. And no, I know we were joking in the beginning, but we're really going to have a serious conversation tonight with our guest who has gone through that same experience. And I want everyone to welcome Miss Valerie to the stage. You want to give her full name?
We have joining us today Miss Valerie Hi Benny. And Valerie is going to share her story. I don't even want to tell it. I want Val to come and share her story. Listen, the chat is open. You guys have plenty of space and opportunity to ask questions.
Absolutely.
Val is very open. She'll be very happy to answer. She's very transparent. But Valerie, welcome to Marital Motivation with the Mackies.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm going to ask you, just for starters, you can share your story. We're just going to give you the floor, give you an opportunity to share your story, and then we'll just ask questions and go from there.
Okay. Well, my story started when I was 18, 19, when I met my husband, Elmas. And he was my best friend. You hear people say that, but no, he was truly my best friend. We grew up together and we were married for 35, almost 35 and a half years. We dated for 3 years. And so I always say, I was with him for 38 years. We never broke up. That's one thing that, I came to the realization. I was like, dang, bro, we never broke up. We had our disagreements and things, but we weathered the storm together. And I think that when you grow up with somebody, you're growing up with your best friend, We had all of adulthood together into uh, our 20s, 30s, 40s, and almost the end of the 50s. But we he called us a power couple. We had it going on. But one day, well, actually, it was a week, maybe I think it was like on a Monday, and he did ministry in Cartersville, Georgia, on Tuesdays, and he came to me one day. It was on a Monday, and he said, "Babe," he said, "I'm going to heaven." And I was, folding some towels, and I was like, "Yeah, me too." You know, this is the plan.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
Right, but he kept talking about it, and he went all deep in the conversation. I can't remember everything that was being said, but I was kind of, I looked at him kind of side eye, and I said, "Now remember, we said we're going to go together. You can't go without me." But he was talking about, people having their lives in order, and this was on a Monday. He went and he preached in Cartersville on Tuesday, and it was almost like he was preaching his own eulogy. It was so weird.
Mhm.
He was talking about how he wanted to be, what's the word, a good example, and how he had lived his life, doing the best. Now he wasn't perfect, but he was perfect for me. But he wanted, he was talking about soon and very soon and going on. He had all this little cliches and things that, he was talking about leaving. And so I didn't really, pay too much attention to it. There was something when we woke up on Thursday, it was so eerie. It was so eerie. And I mean, even the spirit had told me to stay home that day. And we carpooled together for about a year, almost 2 years, and I loved being with him. That was like our time in the morning. We would joke about things in the scriptures. We joke, we would read the scripture. He might make me sing. I was not a singer, but he would make me sing a song. And I enjoyed, that time. And so on this particular day, he was and I had noticed it, during the week he was in deep thought. But on this particular day, he said, "I feel so lost." He said, "I know God works in seasons." He said, "But I don't know how he's going to use me in this season." And so I remember we got like right to Thornton Road in Riverside. And I remember taking his arm, and I just put his hand to my head, and I said, "God," I said, "do not take this man from me." I said, "I find so much strength in him." Now, this was out of my spirit. This is my spirit speaking. And I'm just like, listening. It was a weird experience. He took me to work, he dropped me off. I kissed him 3 times, you know. And when I kissed him, we joked about always to work at 7:03, getting me to work at 7:03. And um there was nothing, really too much different with that day, other than, just these little pieces that, that kind of like spiritual interjections is what I call them.
Mhm.
But I had planned to call him back to find out, more about what he said about feeling like he was, lost. Just like when he said feeling lost, I could see it as him being like disconnected, like your job is done now, we're coming down to the last moments or whatever. But I had planned to call him back, and I got sidetracked, and somebody had called my phone, and when I looked, his face popped up, and so I picked up the phone, and I was like, "Hey, babe," and it was another voice,
Mhm.
and it was an EMT, and he was telling me that Elmas had a seizure on his way into work. And now this was like within the hour of him dropping me off. And I was like, a seizure. I said, he doesn't have seizures, So they said, well, we're taking him to Kennestone. And so I went running to the parking lot. I didn't have a car because we carpooled. So I had to wait for somebody to be able to drive. So that in itself was agony. When I got to the hospital, I told them I was there to see my husband, yada yada yada. And the guy was like, okay, well, if you just have a seat over here, and we'll get somebody to take you back. And so there was a lady on the other side of him. There was like a partition, and the lady on the other side of him, and she goes, and so he leaned back, and his whole face went flush. And I immediately said, I'm not receiving this. I was like, where's my husband? And so they said, well, somebody's going to come out and get you. And I waited, trying not to let those thoughts come into my mind. So I waited, and here comes this little old white lady. She was dressed in black, and she just shuffled her way on in there, and she said, I'm going to take you back to where you can talk to the doctor. So I'm going through, it's like a special area of the hospital. And so I'm going through there, and I'm like, where's my husband? You know. So finally the doctor comes in. I've made my phone calls, to everybody, call the boys, our sons. And the doctor comes in and tells me, you know, this is what happened. Your husband had a seizure. By the time that the EMTs got to him, his heart was doing like this. And so she said that it had lost its rhythm. And I'm like, okay. And she said, and we couldn't bring him back. I lost it. I lost it. You know, um, it was devastating because, like I said, we got up. He was very quiet that day. Now this man is telling me he's leaving on a Monday, and by Thursday he's gone. You know what I'm saying? And it's like your light. It was like a water faucet had been turned off. Everything that you could have gotten from that faucet, everything, the refreshing, the total of everything, shut off, and you had no way of turning it back on. So my life literally shifted. And when I say shifted, it's like the whole world just went and turned upside down. And I had by the time the doctor, because I told her, I just yelled at the doctor. I said, I want to see my husband. And at that time, Aaron came in, who's our youngest son, and I just grabbed a hold of him, and how everything else happened, it was like, I don't know. I went in there, and they took us into, to view the body. Can't touch him, which was crazy, but I found a way to touch him anyway. And Elmas and I always had this thing where I would put my fist in his hand, and he would cover me. So it was almost like a silent, it was just a little thing that we always had between us. So I took my hand and I put my hand in his hand, and there was no covering. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so I remember looking up, there was this big metal clock, and I was in the room with him by myself. And that clock said 0000 in all red. And it was like, time is up, and it was something. It was very devastating. Your body goes through, you can't even begin to imagine. It's like the brain and your body are not working together, so it was very hard, extremely hard.
And I have to say, we definitely had an opportunity to have a relationship with Elmas, and one of the most gentle, kindest.
Yeah.
I can't even give you all the accolades. I mean, but just a genuine good guy.
Yeah, he
Absolutely.
was.
And I know even when we got the call, and and I was just like, wait, what? Just being someone who had an opportunity to know him, it took our breath away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even to hear that. And then knowing that you two, I mean, of course, we've known you, so we know
Right.
the story
Right.
that, this is your high school sweetheart, and you all have had all of these years together, three boys, and just to know all of that, all we could do was pray.
Yeah.
Pray for you, because like I said, we again couldn't even imagine being in that situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
so I'm gonna ask you though, but like in the early days, like right after you lost you after with losing him,
Hmm.
what did just getting through the day look like?
Um, it was hard, especially like I said, we carpooled, and um, I had to literally, I think it was like 2 weeks after the funeral. I went back to work, and I opened my front door, and I looked at the threshold, and it's like, you're taking this step, and you're doing it by yourself now, you know. So it was hard, and the thing about when I was working, I had kids. I was teaching kindergarten and first grade. I needed those kids.
Mm.
I needed those kids. My God. When I say that they gave me my sustaining power, I mean, God was there, yes, but He was there through them,
Okay.
And
Mm.
so when I left them, especially like the very first time that I had uh, driven myself to work, I came out in the parking lot and I saw my car. And it was like a reality slap. He's not there. He's not going to take you home. He's
Mm.
not going to ever be there again. Coming to that realization that you are not going to see that person ever again in this life, that's a personal hell mentally. I know that God sustained me, because by rights I should have lost my mind, honestly, because of how connected we were and how much in love I was and how much in love we were. We weathered, like I said, we weathered the storms, and those things tend to bring you together. They don't take you apart. They
Right.
bring you together. So it was hard to do, but I always had my little motto, and it was Nike's "Just Do It." And oh my God, I
Mhm.
went and got so many shirts in different colors that said "Just Do It," because this is how I had to live. This was my life now.
Mhm.
Everything was going to be just do it. So I remember one time when I wanted to have that moment where I, like you said, stay in the bed. Somebody got to come and get you. I kid you not. I heard Elman say, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm laying in the bed." He said, "Get up and get some clothes on." And from that day forward, I didn't have that moment anymore where I just sat in my bed, and it wasn't me. You know what I'm saying? And in losing him, it's like, I'm not gonna let you be somebody that you're not. Girl, get up, get some clothes on.
Mhm.
Because that's what he used to say, get up and get some clothes on, you know.
Mhm.
But I did not get to go through a depression or anything. I was in school. That was something that he and I had, we had talked about in ways to better ourselves. I was going back to school to get my bachelor degree in education. That was the plan. As I said, we had plans. That
Mhm.
was the plan. And I was like, okay, do I still go through with it? Do I still do it? So I did. So for 2 years, I was able to have a an out, I guess I could say, where I would not think about him so much. I'm thinking about trying to get the lessons. Now there were those dark seasons. Now I'm not gonna, paint you this beautiful picture. There were those seasons where it was hard. And I had the times where my breath was literally taken away. So when you hear a person say that their breath was taken away, I could not breathe. And I remember that at least 3 times, you
Mhm.
know. But that was, the grief. But I spent time in that prayer closet, and I told God, I said, I don't know what you can do with me now because I'm a broken woman, and I learned um one day I was walking from my bedroom to another part of the house. And again, there was that threshold moment. And there was a picture of Elmas in my bedroom. And I looked at him and realized, and it made me cry as soon as I realized it, how much of my identity was in what we had. We had a ministry, we were ministering to married couples. And it was like, now what? Who am I? I'm so shattered, I'm so broken, I can't be anything for anybody. And I asked God, I'm like, what do you want? What do you want from me? What could I give you? So that day to day, um it was a motivation, my own motivation. Yes, God would guide me, and I know that He was pushing me. But you can kick against that. You can sit down somewhere and have that moment where you say, nah, I'm good, I'm not gonna do anything. I'm just gonna be right here, stinking it all, like you said, But I I couldn't do that. I didn't do that.
Mhm. I love how you said you had that conversation with God, like, I'm broken. What do you want? And people got to understand we can be real with God.
Yeah, yeah,
So many people are just like, they drown in that depression, but
yeah,
you took an opportunity to be real and just like, Lord, I don't know what I have no answers. I need you to guide. I need you to
yeah.
lead. I need you to tell me,
Right,
and that's what we have to do.
right. You
You
have
know.
that wake up moment. You're like, okay, and I went through that too. I would wake up and look at the ceiling. I'm like, dang, I'm still here. I wanted to be gone.
Hmm.
I remember I sat my son down, my youngest son. I said, look, I love you guys. I said, I love my grandkids. I said, but I don't want to be here without daddy. Just real. I said, I love y'all, but I want to go. I don't want to be here without him.
Wow.
And it was the scenery, everything changed. You had a big vision like this and it became like this, and it, I mean, going to Walmart, that was something, and it's like these were places that we hung out and it really made a difference. I remember you guys remember Deacon Jones, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Deacon Jones told me one time he got to Kroger, and he said that's because where he and his wife would always go. He could not get out of the car. He said he just cried, because you have that schema of this is the way that our life is, and those are the things that you take for granted.
Hmm.
I remember I was in Walmart. It was a Christmas time. Being in Walmart at Christmas time was hard enough. But then they played the song, I'll Be Home for Christmas. Oh my God. Every little thing. It's like you're so aware of things that you were not aware of before, in that season of life.
It also speaks to, like you said, the connection
Yeah.
when you're married and you're one and you're truly, really one, and you allow God in that relationship. Everything you are, you're wrapped up in that
In
person.
that. Yeah.
Spiritually, emotionally, your thoughts, your habits, and like you said, it's a piece of you that is a large part of you that is gone.
It's like an amputation. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the best way I could describe it. It's like an
Wow.
amputation.
So Val, let me ask you, so did losing your husband change how you viewed marriage? Or did it just reinforce what you already believed?
Um, like I said, both of us were saved, okay, filled with the Holy Ghost. The ultimate destination is heaven. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think it changed anything. It was, when you really look at it planned out. This was the plan. Okay, this was from the beginning and the end. And you have this happy stuff in the middle, the little fuzzy stuff in the middle. But it didn't really change my outlook on marriage. it was, like I said, you have your ups and your downs. It was just, basically what it was.
Mm, gotcha.
So how did the transition? So you have been with this man for all these years, and Elmas is gone. What does a transition period look like? And when do you come to the point where whether you're open to dating or your heart is ready, or how did that, what fears did you have? How did that whole transition look like? Because I feel like with a lot of people, the first part of your story is the end for so
Yeah.
many. And it's just like they flip the switch. Okay, that's it, but your story is different, so part two, how do we get to part two?
Okay, so like I said, marriage was, till death do us part. And Elmas and I were together, like I said, since we were 18. And for all of those years, I was saved, an adult. I never knew what it was like to be single and saved. Okay. So it's like, oh, I need to know what this life is like. So I did not plan to it was not in my plan to get married again. And when I did start having the option, now this was like after 5 years. Okay, after Elmas had passed for 5 years. I had the plan of I just want somebody that I could kick it with. We go out, we get some wings, we can shoot some pool, go to a movie. I was not looking for a relationship. If a relationship happened, then cool, I would deal with that at that time. And I had prayed this crazy prayer. I don't know. I think God gave me that prayer. I told the Lord, it's like, I'm gonna let you have your input, God. I said,
That never goes
said,
well.
right. I said, if you should deem it necessary for me to be married again, I wanted to be somebody that I know and somebody that's in the church. And it wasn't like a really deep, sincere, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus kind of prayer. And so, but it was out there. And I was part of a production team at the church. And listen, we were always, writing plays and stuff. You two were in my plays.
Yes, I was just getting ready to say, look, let me put a little note in there. Val was really instrumental in David and I getting closer because you wrote the play, God Said Wait.
Right.
And so we did it. Now, I wasn't his girlfriend in the play. He had another girl as girlfriend in this play, but we got to spend more time together during that time, and then later you wrote the play, the relationship play. I don't remember the title of it, but you had us up on stage kissing for like 6 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That was after we got married.
When love is
walk
when love
around
is not
quoting
enough.
lines from the play.
Yeah, when love is not enough. Yeah. Yeah.
So Val writes amazing plays. She writes books. We'll talk about that a little later. Amazing, amazing, amazing. The creativity that God gives her, and then to really see all of that come and be played out, it's amazing. But okay, go on.
So we were we had become a team. There was 3 of us, and 2 unmarried, 1 married, and we were trying to find some brothers to do a particular part in the church and in the play. And we went through this long list, and we thought we had this one brother, and he was like, no. So we got down to Benny, and Steph was like, well, what do y'all think? Everything we did, we collaborated on everything. And I said, well, we can ask him, and see. I knew that he worked a lot. Benny worked 7 days a week. He works 7 days a week now. So I knew that he worked a lot. And that was one of the things, that Steph also knew. And so she said, well, let's ask him. So he agreed to do the part. Now, the thing that was deep to me is, okay, I was an usher in the church, and I happened to usher on an aisle where Benny, he sat like in the very back. And I'm not paying no attention to this brother. He's not my type. Okay. He was not my type. And so he had been checking me out for about 2 months. And I'm like, okay. But I didn't know it when he accepted the position, when he accepted doing the part. And so I'm talking to him just like I'm talking to everybody else. Y'all know how I am when I'm directing. I'm very hard.
Woo!
Yeah, whatever.
Woo!
And so, I'm telling him, because he's not getting his lines and stuff right. And I'm telling him, I'm like, yeah, I need you to get your lines right. I need you to get your lines together. Not thinking that he's interested at all, but he had already been checking me out. So it was almost like that time frame was created for him to get closer to me.
Mhm.
And so he had, we had to be in contact with him, so everybody had his phone number. And so he would send me a text message. He's like, well, how did you think, about my acting? And I said, well, you did good, you know. And so he just kept asking these questions. And so I said, and by now I'm starting to feel like I'm very critical because I know how I am. Y'all know how I am. And so I was trying to get better and not being, super critical of a person's abilities. And so I was like, okay, let me reach out to Steph and Z, And so I said, am I being real critical? I said, because Benny is asking me questions and he wants to know, he's asking me. So I said, am I being really critical? So they send me back laughing emojis. So I'm like, okay. And so I'm trying, I'm telling him, you did a good job, yada, yada, yada. And I went on, we had like something else at the church. And he came up to me and he's like, well, what did you think about, because we did a video. Well, what did you think about how I did on the video? And I'm looking at him and I'm like, you did good. It's good. I'm like, there's Steph over there. You can ask her, I don't know where Z is,
Mhm.
but he would, it was like he was, almost like making himself known. So I was at work one day and I want to say that this was, no, we were still doing the play because he and I ended up kind of talking. But he had sent me this message, hope you're having an amazing day, something like that. And I'm at work now, I'm teaching kindergartners. And I look at my phone, I said, oh, I said, well, the fact that you are texting me must really mean that I'm on your mind. That's what I said.
Mhm.
And he's like, something like, oh, you have no idea. It just went from there. Okay. And so I'm like, oh, And so he had asked me out to go see, uh, I forgot the name of that movie. It was Color Purple. And I was like, yeah, he likes to go see the movie at Christmas time. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not, going to do that. And so I had said something. I was like, Mr. Benjamin, are you asking me out on a date? And he was like, I am. He said, I'd like to know who you are outside of church. And I was like,
Mhm.
And so it just kind of went from there. So he asked me out to dinner. We went to
Mhm.
dinner. I'm not thinking anything, you know what I'm saying? But I am feeling the vibes from him even when we're at dinner, and I'm like, okay, you know. So then we went out, and I can't remember if we did we went to Dave and Buster's. I can't remember which one was first, but with the Dave and Buster's, he asked me. He said, "Are you attracted to me?" And I was like, "No, I just want somebody to kick it with." You know,
Oh Lord.
I'm real. I'm real. You know, I'm real.
You have always been straightforward and real.
And
And
walking around
so,
with a sign saying, "Please pick me, pick me."
My good. Nah, not really.
uh, but we had really, really a good time. Well, I mean, we sat there for hours. Then there were times when we would have, conversation, and the conversation would go on to like 2 o'clock in the morning. I got to get up at 5 to go to work. It was almost like we were kids. Like, and everybody's like, y'all on the phone like teenagers. But it was something that I felt okay with because, like I said, I just want to kick it. I'm not looking for a relationship. I'm not looking for anything else. He, on the other hand, had marriage in mind from word go. And he was wanting me to be his wife. And so he told me, he said, by the time that he had really um, come forth, so to speak, he was already fully into me. And I'm like, okay.
So now, did you feel at that point? I know you were saying you were looking just to kick it and just have somebody to hang out with, but did you feel like you were ready to date again, or what fears
Well,
did you have?
there was a guy or some guys before him, that had expressed their interest, interested parties. I just was not
Mhm.
interested in that party. Um, but but to phrase your question again, I want to be careful and what selective in what I say.
So I want to know,
Woo.
did you actually feel like you were ready to date again at that point? Did you feel ready to date, or did you have some fears there that you need to push
I
past?
did. I was kind of ready to date because, like I said, and these guys were before Benny. Um, the fears was how could I put it? Being tied down again.
Mhm.
That's why I say I just kind of wanted to kick it, but there were other fears also. And I remember there was a guy in Savannah, and he was interested in me, and we had this discussion, and he told me, and I gave him this analogy, because I knew just in our conversation where he was going with it. And so I told him, I said, well, I'm the kind of woman that will trust God. If I'm going to go buy a truck, I'm going to trust God. If God says that's my truck, I don't have to go test drive the truck. And so he's like, well, he said, I'm the kind of guy that likes to test drive what I want. And
Mhm.
I'm like, okay. He said, I appreciate you and your values. He said, but you're not going to go very far with that. You're not going to get anybody with that. Yeah. And
Lies.
so you're right. I was like, oh my God. And
Oh,
that conversation really, it really blew me away, but it put me in the mindset of a single woman. And then you
Mhm.
got the Christian single woman. She has her values, and you got these guys. Like I said, they want to test drive.
mm,
So that was definitely a fear because I'm be, like, like I said, I'm not into the test driving. I'm just going to believe God. Um,
Mhm.
but that was that. If that was a fear, that thing really stymied me. Because it made me think about our young people,
Mhm.
who are looking for the right person, having the same values that they have. I want to keep myself, you know, um, God says, wait, and then you're like, no, but that if that was a fear, if there had to be a fear, that was it. That was
Okay.
it.
Whew. So now you and,
Mhm.
and Mr. Benny, y'all are hanging out, and he's walking around with this sign saying, "Pick me, pick me,
Choose
pick
me.
me,"
No,
and
it
you
was almost like that.
and you were just ignoring all the signs.
Right.
Okay, but then all of a sudden you realize I'm starting to fall for this guy.
Yeah. Oh my God. It was like I was defeating myself. Um it was like I had my position, okay? And at some point I moved and I don't know when I moved. And that really bothered me, and I told him that, I said, I had to, I mean, I cried about that thing because I thought I had control. I thought I had control of this. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Yes, yes, we can go out. No, we ain't gonna go out. Yeah, I'll call you. I would tell them, like on the phone, I said, okay, I'm gonna go dark for 4 or 5 hours. That means don't call me. I'm out doing whatever, I wanted to do. I'm still safe. But the fact that he was always a perfect gentleman, never really pushed up on me or anything, but his push was yet a push to where it moved me from where I was to closer to him. And I told him, I said, I'm starting to fall for you, and I don't want to.
Whew.
you know but like I said, he was relentless in his pursuit. He knew what he
I
wanted
love it.
and he was going for it. You know, and I remember when he was sitting in the back of the church, and he was going through a weight loss journey, and he was sitting in the back of the church, and he was telling me, I asked him, what he was doing with for the weight loss. And I told him, I said, you need to get some new shirts, because that's not where you are right now. Just that boldness. Because I knew Benny in the church. Benny's been there since 90, I think 95.
Mhm.
It was always, he was brother Benny. You know what I'm saying? No
Yeah.
interest. He was not my type, But even when we started dating, I wrote him a poem telling him that you're not my type, but I love I love how I feel with you. You know what I'm saying? And so these are the things that caused me to move.
Mm.
And I loved our conversations, just all of this. And even the people outside of, my family and stuff, family did not do well with that in the beginning. But
We're gonna talk about that too.
yeah, yeah. But like I said, I moved,
Mhm.
and it was devastating to me personally. Like I said, I cried because it's like I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to
Mhm.
be in this place.
So with that feeling though, was it guilt, or was it just simply that you shifted and felt out of control?
I was no longer in control. The guilt came when he kissed me, and it was like, and okay, when I say it's like, I don't want to do this. There was and I'm gonna give you a good example. Okay, Friday nights was nights for me and Elmas, and we would date or whatever. We have a date night. And so I tried to keep that going after he passed. So I would date myself on Friday nights. So on this particular night, I was watching a movie, uh, A Star Is Born, with Lady Gaga.
Mhm.
At the end of that movie, she sang this song that blew me away. That song fit me perfectly. And when she sang it, it made me cry. It was a what was that song? It was called "I'll Never Love Again." That song became an allegiance for me, and Elmas. You know what I'm saying? So it's like nobody's gonna come between this because I'm never gonna love again. I don't want to start another fire. Don't want to know another kiss. All that stuff was just going with Benny, and I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm out of control. I don't control it anymore. And he just kept on, marry me, marry me? And I'm like, no, no, you know. And then it was like, maybe, you know. And it's just like, oh God, I'm here. I'm just dying down, you know.
Mm,
And yeah, yeah. It was an interesting journey, and I could not really fight what I was feeling for him,
mhm,
and I didn't want to lose him. And also flesh gets in the way. You know what I'm saying? We're talking 5 years, and I ain't been with nobody. And now here comes this man. It's like, okay, we need to do something,
mhm.
because I'm not going to hell over my flesh. You know?
Hear you.
Yeah, because
Oh
facts.
my goodness.
Facts. But yeah, he was always, a perfect gentleman, perfect gentleman. Um,
And
Go ahead.
speaking of him being a perfect gentleman, and you also mentioned how you dated yourself on Fridays. Was that something you and Elmas did?
Hmm.
How do you honor Elmas, and how do you make room for that relationship and honoring that relationship? How does that look like in a new marriage?
It creates um some rough waters. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm,
Because for me, I had to release to embrace. And at the time, like I said, I'm a broken woman. I'm shattered pieces. I'm holding on to these broken pieces because this is all that I had of, my relationship with my husband, with Elmas. And to really try to, just let go and let Benny have everything, have all of me. That was that was not going to happen. You know what I'm saying? I was under the regime of one man for 38 years, and now I have I got a new priest of the home. It's not easy,
I can
and
imagine.
Benny is 7 years younger than I am. So don't call me a cougar.
Woohoo for
I would say
younger. I love it. I love it. I
both
love it.
y'all.
Yes.
Saying.
Ain't nothing like a younger man. I'm just gonna say it. I'm gonna put it out there.
It was crazy. But yeah, it's hard. It's really, really, really hard for him, and I do my best. I'm trying, hearing God on things, and at the same time, you don't want to let go of certain things. And it's like I need God's help. So sometimes the waters can be very rocky for him, where I'm just sit back and I'm like, I know these waters. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But this is his first marriage. You know what I'm
Mhm,
saying? So I have to try to take into account this is his first marriage, and he's has, these expectations. Yeah, I know about, the expectation, but sometimes I'm not wanting to live up to the expectations. Just being real, but I have to check myself, because when I was with Elmas, I learned my place. I learned about being a helpmeet. You know what I'm saying? The praying for my husband, and, being whatever it was that he needed me to be. Okay, now I have a new priest, and it's still the same. The word is still the same. You're gonna be
that
a
part.
helpmeet. You're gonna be a helpmeet.
Mhm.
But it's gonna
So
look different for one than it will for the other. So yeah,
right.
because it's different needs
Different
and
needs,
yeah.
different, as I say, a different building. I can't use the same tools that I have, to build this one to try to build this one, and so it's like trying to maneuver, understand, like you said, that they are different. He is not the same as what I've had,
Mhm.
and this is what God has brought me. Because I know when Benny came in the picture, the first thing I did, I said, God, why is he here? I'm serious. And I asked the Lord that like a long time going into my prayer closet. Why is he here? I'm a broken woman. What does he want?
Mm.
You
Mm,
know.
Let's fill in some gaps. So you and Elmas were together for 38 and a half or so years.
Mhm.
How long was it from the time that Elmas passed until you and Benny started dating?
It's 5 years.
5
5
years. And then how long now have you and Benny been married?
We will be coming on. Ooh, baby, you might want to type that in. I think it's 3 years. No, 3 years. No, 2 years. Yeah, it's 2 years. I'm joking. Yeah, you
Did
know,
she have to tell him to type that in?
Yes, she
Did
did.
she have to tell him to type it in? So you can't say anything to me because I missed the anniversary date.
Yes, I
no,
would say something
our,
there.
our anniversary is on December the 24th. It's his favorite time of the year, which is Christmas
Oh,
Eve. So I figured I give him the best gift, which was my son.
how sweet. I love it.
Love it.
Okay, so now you and Elmis had 3 sons together.
Yeah.
So here you are now, broken pieces,
Mm-hmm.
and your sons have seen you going through the grieving process.
Right.
And all of a sudden now, here you bringing new Shawty up on the scene.
Yeah.
So how? Because of course now your children are adults.
They're
Yes.
grown men.
So how did your children react, or your adult children react to you seeing somebody else, and how you just managing the opinions, not just of your sons,
Right.
but of even other people?
Right.
Because you had some other people that's like, I've been single for 99 years and still sitting here waiting and believing God, and then here God gonna bring you somebody else.
Right.
So you have opinions around. How did you navigate all of that?
It was not easy. It wasn't easy at all, especially with my oldest, who now has a very good relationship, a sickening relationship with Benny.
She did not say second.
But
We went
it
from
was
why
not
is he
easy.
here?
Yeah, it's like, Mom, he's not even your type. That's what he said. He's like, he's not even your type. I said, you don't even know what my type is, But it was not a welcome, a grand welcome for him, and Benny worked at developing that relationship from the very beginning. He like went to my boys and was like, especially Anthony, who's my oldest, and he was like, hey, I'm interested in your mom. You want to give him that respect. Let me go to him as a man, let him know, I'm interested in your mom. And so, Aunt was cool with it, because I don't know if he was, realizing that it was really going to go where it went, but he was cool with it, but always unaware. My youngest, I have one that's in prison. So I told him about it, and so we'll have to deal with that later. But with my youngest, she's like, as long as he does you right, and this is what you want. He said, I'm straight with it, as long as he don't put his hands on you, I'm good, you know, just the male thing,
Mm-hmm.
But with others, I had people walk by me in church, when church is let out and we're all in the vestibule and you got a lot of people out there. I had somebody come by me and say, yeah, it's going to take me a minute to really deal with this. And I was like, okay. So I got a little, I got side eyes. I got side eyes. I was like, oh my God.
This is
But
the thing. Like, I know it's there, but it's like, how do you bring yourself to say that?
Say it, right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, but we all need growth.
But it was, definitely people who were close to me. They wouldn't, it wouldn't be somebody that just, it was, So, it wasn't easy, but it was so crazy because Benny told me that was going to happen. And I was like, no, why? People ain't got nothing to do with my life. It's been 5 years, but it happened just the way that he said it was going to happen,
And one thing I have to say too, I give mad respect to Benny. And I say that because so often in churches, you would hear of a single guy just running through the church.
Yep.
You hear, like, yeah.
And I have known some.
Yeah, he dated this one, 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 this one.
Right.
And that was never his story.
Well, he said that when he saw me that day that I ushered, And he said, he looked at me, he said, the Lord told him, in all that getting, there is more. And he was not looking for a relationship either. He was getting ready to go on a cruise, to, possibly find his wife. I don't know. But he wasn't looking, and I wasn't looking, but he did want to know if I was attracted to him. And I just wanted somebody to kick it with, But that was the thing that just made it so crazy, because neither one of us was looking. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And he felt that he was supposed to take care of me. That's what he said. He said the Lord put it in his spirit to take care of me. And he does. He does. I ain't got to pay for nothing.
I love it. I love
And I'm
it.
saying, and
Yeah.
that brother high five,
Right,
hugs,
right.
that all of it.
He's endured a lot. Yeah, give
Mhm.
him his kudos. He's endured a lot. He's still enduring a lot. Because
Yeah.
I
He's a
have
good
those
man.
moments. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, because I was gonna say, because even at the end of the day, reality is you still grieving.
yes,
You still have that grief I mean, grief is not something that
you could
you,
turn off.
oh, it came, I
Yeah.
grieved for 3 years now,
Hmm.
but no, grief is a process. I think it's a
Yeah.
process. One of the things that I've learned in grief is that you never get over it.
No,
You
you don't.
learn to incorporate it
Yeah. And
into
God forbid you have the drive-bys. That's what I call it. You have those moments when the emotion will come and just, you're like, oh, you
yeah,
know, and
yeah.
you have to recover. The recovery time is faster, but I still have drive-bys,
Gotcha.
on my emotions.
Gotcha.
If Benny get on my nerves, I have a drive-by.
Hey, and that is a part of marriage.
It is, your nerves. I get on
Right.
his nerves. Yeah.
We get on each other's nerves. What is wrong with you today? Mm-hmm.
Oh, you talking about me?
Mm,
Oh,
yeah, at times.
no, never.
Uh,
But Val, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Mhm.
I absolutely love it. The second time around, like just not even expecting God to even go that route,
Mhm.
never thinking that you would love again and be
right.
willing to give yourself again,
Mhm.
and for God to just do the work.
Yeah.
And move you out your own spot.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness.
don't even know that you moved. Don't even know. Like,
Hmm.
hey, what happened? What?
Wait, my hand was on this chess piece, so I
Right.
moved over there. Okay.
Right.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it. Before we close out, though, if there is one takeaway that you want, because there's going to be a woman or even a man
Mm.
that's going to hear this story, that's sitting where you were sitting. They lose a spouse. It could even be through divorce or through whatever. It doesn't have to necessarily be through death. But they are sitting in this position of feeling like, this is the end of my story. What is one takeaway that if they don't hear anything else that you've said, what's one thing you want them to leave and making sure that they hear?
How important it is to have that relationship where you can hear God. You know, um, God can bring things into your life, but if you are so clogged up with your preconceived notions, your list for the women, you can miss God. You can miss what it is that He's trying to give you or to show you. We have scriptures in the Bible. You got the lady with the two sticks, and she was supposed to sustain the prophet. And he looking like, oh wait, she only got two sticks. She can't be the one. You can miss God. You can miss
Hmm.
God. So it's really good. Be ready to embrace the newness. Um, you're going to have to let something go in order to do a full embrace. Be ready to that, but it might not look like you expect it to look, but be open minded. And like I said, seek God on it. Ask, why is she here? Why is he here?
That part.
Wow, I love it. I love it. I love it. Again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story.
You dropped a lot of nuggets.
Oh, a whole bunch of
A
them.
lot.
So speaking of stories, I'm sure you're probably gonna write a book on it. But
We were talking about doing it, doing one together, like him, her on the chapters. Well, y'all gonna do that too. Hey.
Did I say it?
you can say what you want to say. Go on.
We've been writing this book for I don't know how many years we've been married.
Okay.
It ain't been that long.
It's an ongoing saga.
Been that
We've
long.
probably been writing this book for about 10 years.
At least.
10 years.
Oh, well, y'all need to just release. Let it go.
So, but speaking of books, like we talked earlier about Val being an author and writing plays and different things, but she also has a book that she has written. Val, you want to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, it's about a woman who really is trying to find out who she is in God. And in trying to create her own path, she has some things, a man, that gets in her way. And she's never really had what he has to offer. So it becomes like a little temptation. And there's a battle within herself because, like I said, she's never had certain things. So she's willing to possibly lose everything for nothing. Her husband is a minister. You got that ministerial life. A lot of people are like, yeah, I'm doing this just because I'm married to the minister. Yeah, it gets really, really good. And if you're not a grown up, you might not want to read it. Because it has some spicy parts in it. It has some spicy parts in it.
Spicy parts hurt.
Oh my goodness. You can use that QR code that's on the screen. You can scan it, and then that will give you access so you can grab your copy today. I'm going to leave that up just for one more minute, but Val is excellent author. So
Great.
I'm waiting to see what else comes from the pen.
Yeah, my husband didn't like the main character. He can't stand her. But yeah.
Okay.
So all the more reason for you to read it.
Oh, there you go. Let's check it out.
Go.
Check it out. And then also I'm going to share, as you all know, David has also written a book. And that book is specifically, it was originally geared, well, I'll let you talk about it. How about that? I'm not going to do it. You talk about your book.
Well, yes, the book was written to men, but I've had a few ladies say that they have read it and it gave them great insight. But it's just called They Lied to You, Men of God, You Are a Nurturer. And it just talks about how, as men, our role within society, community, our marriages, our families, and how we are nurturers. We're not just the provider, and how providing is a part of nurturing, but just all the things that in the scriptures and the things that make a man what he is, and how he is to build and love his family and community.
There you have it. Again, there's the QR code. Make sure you download it and you can get your digital copy as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we are going to wrap it up. But again, Valerie, we just say thank you so much. This was good. This was good. So I'm going to give David some grace now. So if I, die before him and he tells me that I'm all right and I'm going to get up and go, I'm going to give him some grace. I'm going to let him have it. I do believe that God would still want him to get up with a smile on his face. And even if that means him falling in love again,
right.
Even though I just don't know how he'd ever,
Right.
You're one of a kind. But just to say, don't take your spouse for granted.
Yes.
Don't take any moment in life
No moment.
Don't take anything for granted, because it can be gone tomorrow. You just
really.
do not know. And when God speaks, follow his plan. If he gives you a direction, if he's nudging you in a certain way, you got to move, because you just don't know. But I hope that this podcast really touched somebody and, encourage them, whether they have a loss or whether they're in a relationship that's struggling and they just haven't looked at their spouse in this mindset of it can be gone tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow's not promised.
You know, tomorrow is not promised. So, you know, Val, I love you. It's been awesome to have you on here, and I really, really enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
Me too, guys.
Everybody, thank you again for joining us with Marital Motivation with the Mackeys. Hey, we've got some more hot topics coming up. Like I said, we've got go on.
I'm gonna insert because Val said something about Benny and how he was relentlessly pursuing her. And that's what we're going to talk about on the next podcast, because we have been tossing that idea around for a minute and talking about relentlessly pursuing your spouse. So that's what we're going to talk about next month.
You sure?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us. We love you much, and we will see you next month.